Hello guys, we're back. In the car like I said we were gonna be, so still figuring this out because had a lot of problems trying to get the camera to work in the car and yeah. Anyways, but it's been a little bit. It might be longer than it was last time. Let's look actually. Every single time I gotta get on this computer and look something up. And I am in my car in the parking lot at college, and I do have my laptop over here. There's just a lot going on right now, okay? But I guess if you're listening on audio, then that doesn't matter. Yeah, so last video I posted was 25 days ago. I don't even know when that was. Um, but yeah, last episode we talked about that we were going to be in the car. So keeping true to what I said. And we also talked about how growth and maintaining relationships can fit hand in hand if you want them to, but if you don't, then like that's your own thing too. Um, but yeah, so that's what we talked about last time. Today, I wanted to talk about 2026 and how it's going so far. We are currently, let's do some quick math, 31 plus, today's the 24th, 50. What did I say? 24 or 31? 55 days? We're 55 days into 2026. So let's do 55 divided by 365. I don't know what that is. We're about 15% of the way done with the year, which that's not even, whatever. But yeah, I wanted to talk about how my goals are going and yeah, all that. And then I also want to talk about today. I actually saw something on Pinterest again, whatever, about comparison and how it can be the thief of joy and all this stuff. And I want to kind of talk about things that I do to acknowledge differences without letting comparison steal my joy. So, we're going to talk about that. But first, something that I have to show you all when we're talking about the year. So, here's my button jar. Like Tamara? Tamara? I don't remember. So, yeah. Granted, this jar is going to be this glass from Walmart. It's going to be too small. And I didn't even buy enough buttons. But this is 55 buttons in here right now. So, which I know like the day's not over, but I just put it in here for the video. But yeah, here's where we are. This is not going to fit the whole year in it, but just for comparison. So yeah, like I told you all, I was not going to do the button thing just because it was like, I didn't want it to be more clutter and all this stuff. But, me and some friends of mine were actually at Walmart and we saw the buttons. So I bought some. And I didn't even buy enough. Like, I'm 100 or something short. But you know what? It is the thought that counts. Here is our button jar for 2026. So yeah. So far, honestly, like, I think my year's been going pretty well. What have I done? I can say this now. Okay, so part of the whole big change that I talked about, um, was it the first episode? I think it was. Um, the big change, like, that I've been working on for myself, but I didn't wanna, like, say anything too soon, any of that. So I actually decided that I'm going to transfer colleges for starting in fall of 2026. So I'm currently at WKU, and I'm going to be going to University of Kentucky in fall. So that's very exciting. So the first part of this year has really just been, like, figuring all that stuff out and really ironing out the details before I really wanted to, like, say it was official, but it's official. Um, so yeah, still don't know everything about that yet, but that's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm also not looking at the camera, so if you're watching the video, I'm sorry. The parking lot's just really interesting. So there's that. Um, but yeah, I've done that so far this year. Came back to school. This. Speaking of coming back to college and college in general, somebody commented last video and let me see what they said. And kind of asked for a video explaining Rush and talking about my college experience in general. I am totally open to doing this. I think I may wait till closer to May though. I just want to address that because I did see it. But yeah, I think that's something I'll wait to do closer to the end of the semester so I can kind of give a whole freshman year of college recap, summary, what you need to know, what you don't need to know, whatever video. Because, like, technically I'm not even halfway through, done with the second semester. But that will be something that I do. That's really been all that I've been up to, honestly. I mean, just like everyday stuff, going to the gym, gonna go visit some friends this week. That's gonna be awesome. But yeah, just like the daily life of school stuff is really all I've been doing. And so yeah, I think that honestly, like, there's not been anything that crazy going on in the first like 55 days of the year, but I do feel like I've been very productive. So that's a plus at least. And another thing I wanted to talk about now that I'm thinking about it actually is technically we're already in another season of, depending on what your religious affiliation is, but if you're Catholic or Christian leaning Catholic or anything like that, you're in another season of goal setting for yourself. Similar to how I talked about in the first video, that I don't think that it's necessarily 100% productive to kind of put all your eggs in one basket and say you have to change your whole life in a certain amount of time, whatever. But you obviously can if that's something that works for you. Um, but if you are, Catholic, anything like that, you're now in the season of Lent. So traditionally, people usually give up like a thing for Lent or a behavior, or like I know a lot of my friends are doing like energy drinks, and some friends are doing like soda and stuff like that. Um some people do like sweet stuff. Um but yeah, like the whole point, if you aren't already familiar with Lent and giving something up and all that stuff, it's supposed to be something that takes you away from or distracts you from God, and that you're supposed to, you know, isolate that thing and give it up for Lent to really like focus on your relationship with God, like leading up to Easter. So kind of similar to how I was talking about the New Year's resolutions. I think that, if this is the way you roll and um it's most productive for you to kind of isolate that one thing, like I was saying, and then, completely cut it out of your life and all that stuff, then by all means do it. Um, but especially for this year, I was kind of talking about setting more general priorities instead of, life altering, life shifting goals all at once, just because that can kind of feel really intimidating, like I was talking about, and it can be kind of overwhelming. So yeah, just stuff like that. I think that if you are Catholic or you do celebrate Lent and all that stuff, I think that's an important thing to think about. especially if it did kind of overwhelm you, if you set resolutions at the first of the year or things like that. Um, kind of if you feel that same pressure towards Lent, maybe just set some goals. Like if you're trying to really emphasize that prioritizing your relationship with God, read a Bible, pray more, go to church more, like just stuff like that. I think that, if your energy drink per day feels like it's really got a hold on you, or like it's really kind of distracting you from more important things, then do that by all means. But yeah, that's just an option, just a thought that I had. So yeah, you can keep that in mind or don't, you know. Um, but then to shift into the second part of what I was going to talk about today. The second part of what I was going to talk about today is comparison and not letting it steal your joy. This is really hard. This is really hard for everybody, I would say. Um, I'm not even going to say, it's harder for girls, harder for guys, because I'm not a guy, so I can't speak on that. It's like the whole thing of like, you can't really truly compare something if you don't know what it's like to do both. I'm going to try and find some things. I think comparison, period, is a part of everyday life. It is what it is. It's, you can't really get away from that. Like, comparison can be as simple as, you know, um, should I have Subway or Chick-fil-A for lunch? Well, Subway's a sandwich. Chick-fil-A can be nuggets or a sandwich or a salad or a wrap, but Subway, you can have more vegetables, but Chick-fil-A is fire and always really good, you know, but Chick-fil-A might have a longer line, but maybe you're not feeling Subway. So, comparison right there. That's example number one. But when you start talking about comparison with others, it gets a little more tricky than that, because comparison there is also kind of a part of everyday life that, you know, um, I'm trying to think of some like relevant examples. Say that like you're in class and you're, um, having a class discussion where it's kind of like a Socratic seminar that everybody has to share their opinion, but you're supposed to kind of build on to the topic. So, in that way, you're comparing what you want to say to what somebody has just said, and you also kind of need to connect the two. But chances are there's probably going to be things that you disagree with on what they said, so you need to kind of do that respectfully and compare what you have to say to what they said and ultimately contrast, but whatever. So, I think that the main issue with comparison, though, that, like I said, a lot of people do run into is comparing and competing with other people in your life to such a degree that it's taking a toll on your life, that it's taking a toll on your joy and your peace, and it's making you more anxious, and it's kind of making you feel trapped. And that is when comparison becomes extremely negative. And comparison is, as they say, the thief of joy. So I wanted to kind of find a few things just to think about. So there's no author on this because I don't think there really needs to be. But don't compare your life to others. There's no comparison between the sun and the moon. They shine when it's their own time. That's a good one. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is a good one. I like this a lot. Okay, we're going to talk about this. So this is a quote from Jordan Peterson, and it says, "Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today." So that really connects to the conversation that we've had about, self-growth and growing alongside other people, but still like making your growth a priority and, maintaining relationships, but still keeping yourself a priority. That if your main focus is how you compare to the people around you, then disregard everything I'm talking about. But chances are you're probably going to be miserable. You're probably going to deal with a lot of self-doubt. And that's going to suck. Like, that's really going to suck. But if your priority is making yourself better, even if that's slow and it's not, jumping off the deep end and hoping that you can make something work, but if it's your slow self-improvement, then your goal should simply be better than, simply better? What? Simply be making yourself better from where you were yesterday, from where you were a month ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't really need to go into all the spaces of time there. There's always going to be differences between you and other people. There's going to be differences in how you look. There's going to be differences in how you did on a test and how somebody else did on a test. That doesn't make anyone smarter. That doesn't make anyone better. It's just the difference. There's going to be differences in how each of you speak. There's going to be differences in the things you wear. There's going to be financial differences. There's going to be demographic differences, all this stuff. In the same way that we were talking about growing side by side and still maintaining relationships with people, acknowledging that there's differences is okay. But when you start making those differences negatives is when there's a problem. But, I mean, some people are like this way. I kind of am sometimes with certain things. But some things I'm really don't tend to be. But comparison is also kind of a gateway into competition. And similar to everything we're talking about, competition is not fully a bad thing. If you play sports, that's natural competition. You're trying to win, you're trying to do something better, whatever. But inviting competition into spaces where it's not needed, like your friendships that are supposed to be supportive and respectful and, a loving relationship, things like that, inviting competition into those spaces is not going to be what's best for you and the other person. Because then, if you're competing all the time, someone is always losing. Whether that's you, whether that's the other person, it doesn't matter. In a two-person relationship, if you are always competing with one another, someone's got to be winning and someone's got to be losing. And that's really unhealthy. That's toxic behavior. That's not necessary. And that's just like, at that point, what's the point of having the relationship? If your only priority is trying to see who can do something better, then I think you've already like lost the plot a little bit. So that's something that I try to always remind myself of, which I'm not perfect. I'm not like a preacher or whatever, but I am a human. So there have been times where I'm like, I wish I could do that way. I wish I was better at them than this. I wish that, all this stuff, that's normal. But you have to be really careful to not let mindsets and behaviors like that become patterns, because when they're patterns, they're going to repeat. And chances are, if you could try to compete with everyone, you're going to keep losing, which, not that other people should be losing so that you win, because that's not the point either. But it's just not a good idea at all. And I know that's more easier said than done. And there are always going to be people that are more competitive naturally, that they kind of can't help it, that, you know, they're always going to want to know like how you did on something so that they can say they did better. They're always going to want to, I don't know, wear your outfit so they can say they look better in it. They're always going to like stuff like that. They're never going to be able to not. But that's not your job to stop them. In that situation, it's your job to say, you know what? They can be competitive. They can be miserable, because ultimately, when they can't find someone to compete with, they're going to be miserable. But you know what? If they're not competing with you and they can't find someone, you're going to be fine. You're going to be well off. You're going to be doing your own thing and acknowledging growth and acknowledging differences and not comparing yourself to death. Just saying. So, yeah, I think that as much as that's easier said than done, the quicker that you can start kind of adopting that mindset and letting it be okay, just traffic behind me, then the quicker that you'll find a lot of peace. You will, because you won't have to deal with insecurity in friendships. You won't have to deal with constant competition in friendships. And I don't know. I mean, I think it would make you feel a lot better. Like, okay, imagine, even if you haven't played sports, imagine that you are a runner, okay? And, you know, one day you have a race and it's only like I don't know any, it's a 1 mile race with someone, okay? So you go and you run the race and you win and you beat the other person and you're like, wow, this is really awesome. And then, you go about the rest of your day, you start the next day and you realize, it felt really good to win. I think I'm going to race them again. So you go and you do a 1 mile race and you're kind of tired because you ran really hard the day before, but you really want to win because you're kind of chasing that high from the day before. So you run really hard and you beat them, but it's only by like 5 seconds. So, you're like, that was a really close win. Like, I'm really glad I got that, but phew, I was close to not getting that. So then, you're like, wow, I've won 2 days in a row. This is awesome. You know, this is great. I'm the best runner ever. Then you go about the rest of your day and you wake up the next day and you realize, you know what? I think that now I've won by a lot and I've won by a little, that I could do the whole thing again and beat them even better. But at this point, you've ran really hard for 2 days and you think you're going to do it again. And you go and you can't hardly stand up anymore and you're running your legs off and they beat you because they might not have been running as hard the first 2 days and they beat you by a lot. That's going to suck. And you're not going to want to go again. So, not to say that some level of competition isn't healthy, that, you're challenging yourself and you're inspiring the other people around you to challenge themselves. But every single day, burning yourself out trying to win, that's exactly what it's going to do, is it's going to burn you out. And you're not going to be able to do it every day. So don't. You don't need to do it every day. So that's just some food for thought. And like I said, it's easier said than done. But, I think that's a really good habit to not have, to break if you have it right now. And maybe you know somebody like this. And then they always try to compete with you. They always try to, catch you when you're down so they can win. Start declining that competition. I'm not really interested. I don't really want to. That right there, that's you winning. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Don't go crazy with the goal setting for Lent. Don't go crazy trying to beat your friends or people you don't even know. So, yeah, don't be crazy. Be awesome. You already know you're awesome. And just keep that in mind. But I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I don't even know what I've been looking at the whole time. I've been talking for almost 30 minutes and I don't even feel like I've looked at the camera. But I hope you all have had a great 55 days of the new year. Don't forget it. I really hope that's not too loud. But yeah, one day at a time. You can do it. Don't forget you're awesome. You're not alone. And let me know if there's anything y'all want me to talk about. Otherwise, I'm going to just keep freeballing and coming up with whatever I want. But yeah, let me know if there's anything y'all want me to talk about. Thank you so much for watching. If you're on Spotify, go check it out on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, go check it out on Spotify. I love you all. Y'all are awesome. And have a great week. And I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.